This handout is much thinner than the Janazah workshop handout we did, which was just 2 days ago on Sunday. That was for about 17 sides of content. So this is really about 6.5 sides worth of content that we need to try and get through in the next hour and 10 minutes roughly, inshallah. So if you bear with me, you listen carefully, you focus, you concentrate, then we can get through. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wahda wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah, amma ba'd. Faqad qala Allahu azza wa jalla fil Qur'anil Majid ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الأمي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Most honorable elders, dear respected brothers, friends, mothers and sisters listening, my youth and young that are present here today, and my elders, as mentioned, we require your full focus throughout the discussion, or shall we say the presentation today. Today the topic is what is Udhiyah? What is Udhiyah? What is Qurbani? And the importance of following the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. As a matter of fact, Udhiyah is practice existed from the time of Adam alayhi salam, from that time. But it was most notable within history, and its significance increased at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and this being the final ummah, and our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being the closest to Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was instructed and desired that the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam would continue for his ummah as well, and this sunnah is the sunnah of Udhiyah, Qurbani. And this word Qurbani, what it is, etc., we discuss in the handout. Where does it come from? And what is Udhiyah? We discuss that as well. Just a brief content highlight of today's discussion. We'll be talking about meaning of the word Qurbani, meaning of the word Udhiyah, an introduction. Udhiyah, some important message about that, the history of Udhiyah, the virtues of Udhiyah, who is required to perform it, the time to perform it in, conditions for the slaughtered animal, rulings on defects of that animal to be slaughtered, slaughtering the animal, how should you do it, about the distribution of the meat and the skin of the animal, and the FAQs. The FAQs is really a very thought through section, which is coming later in this session today, but that's the one where it's your commonly asked questions, and I hope I've got every single one gathered there that really mean a lot to you. So we're getting to that as well, but because this is rules and regulations, history, etc., so there's a lot of listening to do. Those that are present here today, they can follow as well, looking inside, but those that are listening need to be alert, because we're not going to go very slow, but just be alert. Try and have a notebook, a handout with you, and just make notes as well whilst this session is going on. So anything that you didn't know, just make a note of that. Is there any brothers from the office here? Sufyan, can you see if there's anyone in the office and if there's any pens for these brothers, if they need to make any notes whilst we're going through. Those brothers that are here today, in the handout that you've got and you're going through, if there's something which is new you didn't know before, you should make a line on the side of that paragraph or that subheading that this is something which I want to revise again, I want to go back to it, I want to read it again and make the most of it. So beginning, meaning of the word Qurbani. So Qurbani is actually an Urdu Persian word, and it's derived from the Arabic word Qurban, and Qurban comes 3 times in the Quran. So Qurbani is not an alien word to Arabic or to the Quran, but it's mentioned in the Quran, and just it's a twist on the word from Qurban to Qurbani that we use in the Urdu language, and it was used in the Persian language as well. Qurban, the Arabic word that's from the Quran, it's derived from the root word qurb, and this means nearness and closeness, and technically it is used for the sacrifice of an animal slaughtered for the sake of Allah in the specific days that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stipulated. In the specific days that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stipulated. So Allah uses this word Qurban in the Quran. فَلَوْلَا نَصَرَهُمُ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ مِن دُونِهِ قُرْبَانًا آلِهَةً. So why were they not helped by those whom they had taken as gods instead of Allah, to achieve Qurban to Allah, to achieve His closeness? Yeah, that's where the word is used. What is the meaning of the word Udhiyah then? So Udhiyah is more well known. So Udhiyah means to, again, the same meaning, to sacrifice specific animals for the sake of Allah on specified days. So that's the same meaning of the Qurbani as well. Technically, whenever Qurbani is mentioned or Udhiyah is mentioned, people refer to the same thing. So Dhul Hijjah, which is the month in which this Udhiyah takes place on the certain days of this month. So Dhul Hijjah is the last month of the Islamic calendar. And the literal meaning of Dhul Hijjah is the month of Hajj. And Hajj is the fifth pillar of Islam. And it is a sacred month from the 5 months that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has titled as sacred in the Quran as well. The 10th day of this blessed month is known as Eidul Adha, the 10th day. The festival of sacrifice, or Yawmun Nahr, the day of camel sacrifice. And camel sacrifice because the thing that was normally sacrificed at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the camels. Yeah, so that's why Yawmun Nahr was from there. Muslims all over the world rejoice and sacrifice animals for the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala with the intention of gaining His qurb, which from Qurbani is qurb. He's gaining His qurb, His nearness. And they commemorate the incomparable and unique obedience of Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who ordered him to sacrifice his only son, the apple of his eye, the flower of his heart. So Udhiyah, it is an important ibadah, and it is also a sha'air it's also a sha'air of Islam. وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Sha'air means a very significant sign of the religion, a very outstanding part of the religion. So Udhiyah, to sacrifice an animal, is a sha'air of this religion. So just the way a person may say that Salah is a sha'air of this religion, and the way how you perform it. So similarly, Udhiyah is also a sha'air of this religion. And these are very, very important symbols. It is not a custom of Eid. So nobody must think, oh, because it's Eid al-Adha, that's why it means customarily we just have to sacrifice an animal. Nor is it a source of merrymaking and celebration. Oh, let's just cut an animal and celebrate over it. Who's cutting next? Muhammad, come on, 10-year-old, let's go, you go cut as well this goat and sheep. No, it's not just merrymaking and celebrating, just the mere fact of cutting just animals for the sake of cutting them. No, but it is a religious command to renew the commemoration of the sunnah of Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salam, and thereafter create the spirit and desire of selflessness and sacrifice that Ibrahim alayhi salam had. So we have to look beyond this animal that's in front of us and this knife that we're holding to sacrifice it. We have to look beyond that. No, I'm not holding a knife here and I'm not cutting an animal, but I am trying to, through this light gesture, think of what sacrifice Ibrahim alayhi salam made to fulfill the order of Allah of holding a knife to the throat of his son. What would that have been? That level of sacrifice. So this sacrifice of this animal, what is this? This means I've just had to spend 80 pounds, 90 pounds for a goat. I had to spend 120 pounds, 150 pounds for a sheep. I had to spend 300-400 pounds for a cow, a goat, a cow, a buffalo, an ox, or even more for one camel. What's our sacrifice in this today's age? It's just the money. That's all the sacrifice is. But this isn't the sacrifice that Allah's desiring from you, that is just the money and give it and your job is done and well done, mashallah. No, it is beyond this, that mentally start to think over what would it have been like in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and what if Allah asked you today to replace that sheep, that goat, that cow with your beloved under that sword, under that knife. Would you be able to do that if Allah's command came? So it's much more than just an animal and buying something and selling something. This is why in our back home countries, people, they buy the animal from 2-3 months beforehand, and they feed it and they raise it and they look after it, and the children even build a bond with it. And then when the day of sacrifice comes to actually slaughter this, then everybody's crying. Why? Because this animal has found a place in the heart of the people that are about to slaughter it for the sake of Allah. So this is somehow getting you even more nearer to the actual meaning and spirit of Udhiyah. Whereas if you're here and you just send the money over, who do you send it through? I just went to Ummah Welfare Trust, click, click, click. I went to this charity, click, click, click. I gave to the masjid, just card payment, tick. Yeah, my udhiyah's done. No, we don't even know anything, no life in it, no connection with it, no spirit in it. We have no interest in the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, nothing. We just, yeah, it's done. And then that's what we tell our children as well. On the second Eid, we have to buy it, we have to sacrifice an animal for the sake of Allah. So I've paid up. And our animal sacrifice been done, distribute to the poor in Pakistan, job done, let's celebrate Eid now. And that's all they know, that, oh, so you just have to buy an animal sacrifice and that's it. So it becomes a ritual in their minds. So you have to give them the entire picture of it. The Quran says, لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. That the meat nor the blood reaches Allah of the animal. You slaughter the animal, you think, oh, this is what Udhiyah is about. Slaughter the animal, but nor the flesh nor the blood reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is your piety that reaches Him. And your piety is something that's within your heart. And no one can see that. But that's what we're saying. That's what you have to build up before the sacrifice. That's the main thing. That's what Allah's going to take into account over there. Thus, the actual purpose of Udhiyah is to create piety within the person, devotion to his creator, her creator, and a desire for obedience and submission in a human for the creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Udhiyah needs to bring out of a person. As a mas'ala, as a ruling, Udhiyah cannot be offered in the name of anyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as it is stated in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that indeed my salah, my sacrifice, my living and my dying are for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. What is the history of Udhiyah? Although Udhiyah had been ordained an ibadah from the time of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, special importance was attached to it only after an incident which took place with Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and consequently it was made wajib incumbent in the time of our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam in memory of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and the sacrifice he had to go through. This is a unique incident in world history and of great, what value? Monetary value? No, spiritual value, which the Quran mentions in Surah As-Saffat. Thereafter, when his son reached an age in which he was able to work with him, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ. Ibrahim alayhi salam said to him, O my son, because there's a pretext before this why he said this. قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ. I have indeed seen in my dream أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ, that I was slaughtering you. فَانْظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى. Tell me, what do you make of it? What's your view? So if I'm seeing this, what do you make of it? So let's continue. The dreams of the prophets are regarded as revelations. Thus, the observance of slaughtering in a dream is just like receiving the command to slaughter whilst you're awake. This is for the prophets. If they're seeing something in the dream, it's like Allah speaking to them whilst they're awake, and the hearts of the prophets are alive in the dreams as well. In the sleep as well. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, in the narrations it comes that he saw this dream 3 nights over. So first night it came as night, maybe that's not what Allah wants. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Second night, the same dream. Maybe Allah's given me this son after 90 plus years of age. Why would Allah just say, I want it back? Maybe I'm not understanding this properly. Third night, the same dream happened. Then he understood, this is exactly what Allah wants from me. So he went to his son and he said, are you ready to fulfill this command of Allah? The son replied, Ya aba tif'al ma tu'mar. O my father, do that which you are commanded. Do it. Satajiduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin. And you will find me, insha'Allah, from the people that are patient. And I will bear this whilst this is happening to me. Don't worry. If Allah's commanded you this, and he understood, the Prophet is saying, I'm seeing a dream. The Prophet is saying, I'm seeing a dream. How is the son going to know dream means that this actually has to happen? But even the son at the young age has been educated by the father that I'm a prophet of Allah and these are the things that happen, etc. Look at this education, tarbiyah that's happening. That's why when he's told about the dream, then he knows that this is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that the Prophet has to fulfill this. So he's like, please go ahead. This was a great trial for Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. He is commanded to slaughter his only child, a child who was blessed to him by Allah Ta'ala in his old age after making numerous supplications. And now reaching the stage where he could assist his old father in his duties and mission. At this time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires this sacrifice. Similarly, it was a great trial for the son too, to obey the command and give away his life. There's Quran ayat in this. There's Quran ayat in this. And the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this. So, similarly, it was a great trial for the son too. To obey the command and give away his life was not a trivial or simple thing. However, the son too showed the qualities of his father by submitting and not relying on his own intentions, determination and courage. Entrusting himself to Allah Ta'ala, he said, if Allah wills, insha'Allah min as-sabirin. Further, he did not say, I will have patience, but said, you will find me to be amongst those who are patient, which is a sign of humility that indicates that he does not claim the quality of patience for himself only. Look at, this is a child speaking to his father. Look at, subhanAllah, look at the training. May Allah give us the tawfiq to raise our children like this. Through the blessings of entrusting themselves to Allah Ta'ala and their humility, they did not falter during the stages of this difficult path. The sole breadwinning father and his obedient son left home for Mina to carry out the command of Allah Ta'ala. When they finally reached Mina, the father turned the face of his son and placed the knife on his throat and used his full strength to fulfill the order and decree of sacrifice. But the power of Allah Ta'ala intervened in the function of the knife, and a call from the heavens turned the events of this whole scene the other way round. فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَا وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَن يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ إن هذا لهو البلاء المبين وفديناه بذبح عظيم. Then when they had both surrendered to Allah Ta'ala and he had flung him down on his face, we called unto him, O Ibrahim, you have already fulfilled the vision. Allah just wanted to see this happening. Allah doesn't want your son from you. Allah just wanted to see that, do you have it in you to do this for Allah? You have already fulfilled the vision. Indeed, do we reward the good ones? Indeed, this was a clear test. And we ransomed him, his son, with a tremendous sacrifice. And with it, a ram was sent down from the heavens as a ransom for Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, so that it may be slaughtered in his place. Allah Ta'ala accepted this sincere act and deed of his messenger Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, so much so that to keep this act alive as a right of remembrance till the day of judgment, He made it wajib, incumbent upon the pilgrims in particular, those who go for Hajj, and upon the Muslims in general, to sacrifice an animal. Which is why it's the ruling that those who go for Hajj, but they, due to the stay in one place like in Mecca or in Medina, the stay is 15 days or more, and they become residents in Mecca as well, then for them there is two sacrifices. One that is of a normal resident anywhere in the world, which is this Udhiyah, which is this Qurbani, and the second is Dam Shukr, that sacrifice which they will give on the day of Eid normally to come out of the Ihram, the Ihram of Hajj. So they have to do two if they are residents over there. So wherever the person is a resident in any part of the world, this is a sacrifice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires from them. What are the virtues of this sacrifice? So Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentions that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam sacrificed 2 white rams speckled with black, and he slaughtered them with his own hand, said Allahu Akbar, and whilst he slaughtered them he said Allahu Akbar, and he's put his foot on their neck to obviously keep them still, because if the animal moves around whilst you're slaughtering, it's only going to hurt the animal more. So putting the foot on the neck is not as something which is cruel, but it is actually to make it easy for the animal itself. Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, he narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed in Medina for 10 years, offering sacrifice every year on Eid. So who do we follow? Our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who follows the act of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. There is nothing dearer to Allah during the days of Udhiyah than the sacrificing of animals. The sacrificed animal shall come on the day of judgment with its horns, its hair and hooves to be weighed. Not only its meat, that which we eat, no, all these things will be weighed as reward for this person. The sacrifice is accepted by Allah before even the blood reaches the ground. Therefore, sacrifice with an open and happy heart. It's the words of the hadith. Right, ready for the technical side of things? Yeah, are you awake? Still awake? Okay, mashallah, still awake, alhamdulillah. Who is required to perform Udhiyah? Every adult Muslim, who has become baligh. So these are 4 conditions, you have to have all of them. You're male or female, so here we're saying that it doesn't matter what you are. Who owns 612.36 grams of silver or its equivalent in money, personal ornaments, stock in trade, or any other form of wealth which is in excess of one's basic personal needs. So basically what we're saying is that you are eligible for zakah. So you are eligible to pay zakah. If you're eligible to pay zakah, that means you have to do Qurbani. On which days, etc., we will talk about it. And number 4 is you have to be resident. If you're a traveler, then there is no Qurbani for you, meaning it's not incumbent upon you, even though there's a lot of virtue that has been mentioned for even Nafal Qurbani, even just offering the Qurbani in and the Udhiyah in those days. The time of Udhiyah. When should Udhiyah be done? Udhiyah is only valid during the 3 days of Dhul Hijjah, namely the 10th, 11th and 12th, and cannot be performed any other day of the year. Number 2, although Udhiyah is permissible on each of the above 3 days, the first day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, is the most preferable and desired day. What happens on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah? What do we do? It's the day of Eid? Yes. Number 3, generally Udhiyah is not allowed before Eid Salah. If Udhiyah is being done at a place where Eid Salah is not performed, the slaughter should commence after the completion of Eid Salah in the nearby town or city. However, according to the Hanafi school, in small villages where Eid prayer is not to be performed, Udhiyah can be offered any time after the break of dawn on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Number 4, Udhiyah can be performed during night time. However, it is preferable to perform it during the daytime. So in Birmingham, you'd be doing it after Eid Salah. You'd be doing it after Eid Salah. After the completion of Eid Salah, you'd not be doing it before then. Conditions for the slaughtered animal. Now these are conditions. Now, are you going to go to the abattoir and inquire about this, go see this, that is my animal like this? Are you going to phone? If you phone home, you can just go through this so they know that you know what you're talking about as well. But if you're doing this real life, then these are very beneficial things to know. The animals eligible for udhiyah are goats, sheep, cattle, you have cow, you have the ox, you have a buffalo, and camels. Be they male or female, any of these. No other type of animal is allowed for udhiyah. Number 2, castrated, meaning those animals whose testicles are removed, they are also allowed to be used for udhiyah. Barren, meaning those female animals which can't give birth, they may also be used for udhiyah. Goats and sheep have to be at least 1 year old. However, a healthy sheep that looks like 1 year old, given that there isn't a 1-year-old sheep available, normally that's what is said, provided it's at least 6 months of age as well. These sheep can be used for udhiyah, and these goats. Cattle must be at least 2 years old, the cow, the ox, the buffalo, and camels must be at least 5 years old. Now the rulings on defects in the udhiyah animal. So, what makes an animal unfit to be slaughtered? What makes an animal unfit to be slaughtered? An animal that was born without horns, or the horn is broken off from the middle, is eligible for udhiyah. However, if the horn is broken off from the root, or the horn has been uprooted, then it will not be eligible for udhiyah. You know, as we go through all this, the technical side, which is studied in books, fiqh books, etc., those who become scholars, they study all this. This is something which I put over here. You know, the reason for mentioning all this is, number 1 is good to know. It's good to know. And number 2 is good to appreciate the level of depth that the scholars have to study in order to make it easy for the ummah and say, right, okay, this is right, this is not right, this is right, this is not right. And this is all from the hadith and the Quran, these are from the books of fiqh, this is all from there. But as we read this, you're not required to remember this. You may not even understand all of it, you may have to go through it on your own again once, but that's fine. What I want you to appreciate is that look at the amount of particularity that goes into just verifying that if a small goat is eligible to be slaughtered, for example, or you can use this sheep, or you can't use this sheep. Look how much detail goes into it. The second defect is that if an animal that is totally blind, or has lost 1/3 or more of its eyesight, or 1/3 or more of one of its ear is cut, or 1/3 or more of its tail is cut, this type of an animal is not eligible for udhiyah. An animal which limps, walks on 3 legs, and cannot put the injured 4th leg on the ground, or it is able to put the injured leg onto the ground, but is unable to walk on it, is not eligible for udhiyah. However, if it is unable to walk on it but can still take support from it, then it is eligible for udhiyah, even though it is limping. Now, who's going to go through this much detail? You know, the scholars, how can we give the specifics to the ummah where we can make it easy for them? The detail of the rulings. If this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. Number 4, animals having no teeth at all are not eligible for udhiyah. If an animal has lost some teeth only and has most of its teeth, it is eligible for udhiyah. If most of the teeth are lost, then it is not. An animal born without ears is not eligible for udhiyah. It's considered a defect. An animal with very small ears, however, is eligible for udhiyah. These are all mentioned in the books of fiqh. You were surprised at this, that this level of detail? Yes, this level of detail. So when you ask a question which is specific, then the scholars don't just make these things up. They go refer to the books and they find all these things there. Thin and extremely weak animals, unable to walk to the place of slaughter, are not eligible for udhiyah. If an animal sustains an injury whilst being slaughtered, the udhiyah is still valid. If an animal is purchased in a healthy and eligible state, and thereafter an accident occurs which renders the animal unfit for udhiyah, then in such a case, if the purchaser is no longer wealthy, meaning sahibun nisab, he doesn't have enough money to purchase that much amount, the udhiyah again, it will be permissible to offer the same animal for udhiyah. However, if the purchaser is wealthy and he can afford to buy another animal, then he cannot use that injured animal. Look at the detail. If an animal purchased for udhiyah gives birth before being slaughtered, look, if it's been selected to be slaughtered and then it gives birth before being slaughtered, then obviously the animal has already been dedicated and specified to be given up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the animal and whatever comes forth from it, everything has to be sacrificed. So if another life comes from it and it gives birth before it's being slaughtered, then everything is sacrificed, because it entire self has already been dedicated and selected, which is why I will tell you, we'll come across this ruling at some point as well. But the agents that take the numbers and the names, etc., for sacrifice, they take that, for example, Brother Muhammad Salim, he says, Maulana Sahib, I want to give you 5 of udhiyat for you to do. So he gives me 5. Now I can't just say 5, he needs to give me 5 names. Now when I'm passing it on to someone else who's an agent in it, because I'm not slaughtering in my backyard, am I? So I have to go give it to someone else. I hope not. Okay. So I have to go give it to someone else now who's got an abattoir, is legalized to do it in this country, or I'm sending it home or somewhere else, or in Syria or Palestine. I've got contacts there. So I need to tell them that, okay, I have 5 names. Yeah. So they will say, for example, Riyadh, slaughter number 1, and then they have to create that tag name of who's slaughtering and give a specific number for that slaughter. And if you track back who's Riyadh slaughter number 1, it's that number 1 which Muhammad Salim gave to me. That number 1 is myself, Muhammad Salim. Number 2 is my son, for example, Imran Salim, and for example, etc., etc. So I know all the names. I didn't have to pass it to my agent, but I said I've got 5, and I've got the names who they are. So he doesn't need to know, doesn't have to know. But what he needs to do is that on each animal he has to tag who's the slaughter being given from, and a coding that shows that it's that the one that is showing there is referring to the one that I've got over here. So he just needs to say the intention of 1 and make it clear that this animal is Riyadh slaughter 1. The next one, Riyadh slaughter 2, and I've got who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. Everything has to be very specified, because this is wajib. And wajib and fard, just like your rak'at in salah. If you stand up for 4 sunnah before dhuhr salah, and you say Allahu Akbar, then you decide to conclude that 4 sunnah at 2, you can do that. If you start with 2, and then you decide to extend it to 4, and stand up and do 4, you can still do that. Because in sunnah and nafil, specification is not necessary and there is a lot of flexibility. But in fard and wajib, you have to specify that I'm praying 2 or am I praying 4? And is this fajr or is this dhuhr? What is this? You have to be very specific, and then you have to fulfill that obligation according to that specification that you made up in your mind. Similarly, udhiyah, the one that you're doing as a wajib, because it's necessary upon you to do, then that has to be specific to you. So when you give it to an agent, they have to know that it's you that they have to slaughter for, and then they have to tag accordingly that this sheep, this goat, this entire cow or a share from it, this is for Muhammad Salim. The second share is for Muhammad Imran. The third is for this. Or it has to be coding that 1, 2, 3, 4 and who it refers to. Now, slaughter of the udhiyah animal. So it is recommended, mustahab, that the owner of the udhiyah animal slaughters it personally, provided he is able to slaughter it properly, correct, according to the conditions. If the owner is unable to slaughter, it is better to delegate the task to another Muslim who also knows the rulings of slaughtering, so he can do a valid Islamic slaughter. If the slaughter has been delegated, it is desirable that the owner of the udhiyah animal is present at the time of slaughter, at least to see the slaughter of the animal. Now if you're sending it to Pakistan and India and Bangladesh, how are you going to fulfill this? No way you can fulfill this. You can't slaughter yourself, nor can you be there either. Number 2, the Islamic slaughter requires that the throat, the external jugular veins and the windpipe of the animal is swiftly and clearly severed with a sharp tool, together with invoking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the High. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. If only 2 of the passages and veins are cut, the slaughter will be deemed incorrect. If any 3 of the 4 are severed, the slaughter will be valid. Number 3, it is mustahab preferable to face the qibla when slaughtering. Number 4, it is preferable to sharpen the knife before slaughter to ease the suffering of the animal. Number 5, after slaughter, the animal should not be skinned or cut up into pieces before it turns completely cold. Why? Because there's a chance that there's still life inside it. Number 6, it is disliked to slaughter an animal in the presence of another animal, although the slaughter will still be considered valid. Why? Because the other animal becomes distressed. And then there's the other technical side, that his heartbeat goes fast and etc. And he comes into maybe a stun mode. Then will the blood come out cleanly as it would have if it was calm? Number 7, it is preferable to read the following whilst laying the throat of the animal towards the qibla. And you probably don't know the Arabic, but in Arabic it's إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. While slaughtering the animal, the person must say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. If the above are not mentioned, because a person doesn't know Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, but he makes the intention and just recites Bismillah, then this is also sufficient. The meat and the skin of the Udhiyah animal. It is allowed for the one performing Udhiyah to either eat off the meat or give it to whomsoever he pleases, rich, poor, Muslim or even non-Muslim. It is preferable, however, that the meat is divided into 3 parts. 1 part for the home, 1 part for relatives and friends, and 1 part for the poor and needy. This is desirable. This is not necessary. If you consume the whole meat yourself, it's fine as well. If you give it entirely away, it's fine as well. Number 2, the meat or skin of the animal cannot be sold or given to an employee or butcher in payment of his labor. So this may happen back home in the country, that you may say that this person's worked hard all day slaughtering, okay, take 1 animal with you. Now if you say take 1 animal with you, and that's just a sadaqah or a hadiyah, yeah, it's just like a da'wah, take it with you. So you're still paying him separately, that's fine. But if you're saying, oh, take this with you, and that is your payment for working hard all day, that your family gets to eat meat, so you can't do that. You can't do that. It may be given as a gift. The skin of the Udhiyah animal can be kept for personal use or given to anyone else for their personal use. If the skin is sold, it is necessary to give that money, the money that's accrued from it, in charity as sadaqah. Number 3, it is not permissible to eat the meat of the following types of sacrifices, and these are sacrifices which sometimes they either come as a penalty, like the sacrifice that is carried out as a kafara, an expiation for a mistake committed during Hajj. The sacrifice that is carried out due to a vow, another, or the sacrifice that's carried out for a deceased person due to his bequest, his wasiyah. The meat of the above mentioned 3 types of sacrifices must be distributed to the poor and needy only. You can't distribute it according to the preferential ways that we just mentioned above, these 3 types. Distribution of the meat. If an animal is sacrificed on behalf of more than 1 person, like a cow or camel, its meat should be divided equally amongst its owners based on weight, and not randomly or by mere conjecture. Even if all the partners agree on its distribution without weighing, it is still not permissible according to Sharia. However, if the actual weighing is not practical due to some reason, and all the partners agree to divide the meat without weighing, then the distribution by guess can be done with the condition that each share necessarily contains either a leg of the animal or some quantity of its liver. This, my dear respected brothers, we have, alhamdulillah, done a lot of the, we've done the what is Qurbani, what is Udhiyah, the importance of it, the virtues of it, and the masail of it, the rules and regulations. And you've done really well, and all the listeners listening, to pay attention until now. You've paid attention until now, haven't you? Have you paid attention until now? Okay, then this is where we go. So before we get to the FAQs, there's Qs for you now. Who's paid attention? Let's see. No, I'm not going to do a random Q and question and answer. Okay. Right, the next part is the interesting part. Now this is the, wow, really? Oh, okay. The light bulb moments part. So inshallah you'll be awake for this one. If udhiyah is necessary upon me, can I cut my nails and hair in Dhul Hijjah? The answer, yes. However, it is preferable not to. Understood the question? Okay, second question. If I am practicing upon the preferable and not cutting my hair and nails, and my udhiyah is in a different country, then when should I cut my nails and hair? So answer, to complete the preferable practice, it should be cut when your animal is sacrificed. So if that is the second day of your Eid, then you would need to wait until then. That is when you have now completely practiced upon the preferential, which is to match the Hajis by staying in that condition in those days. Now if you say you've done 10 days and you're like, no, I'm just gonna freshen up for Eid now. I can't wait one more day or 2 more days. I can't be like this. It's your choice. Yeah, it was never compulsory for you to start it like that. It was never compulsory to finish it like that, but it's about the reward. So if you're still desirous of the reward, then do it in its complete form. Question. If the husband owns the required amount for udhiyah, so he's person who's eligible to pay zakah, and he has now he's eligible, so it's necessary upon him to do the udhiyah, but his wife does not own that much amount. So does he give on behalf of both himself and his wife? So he earns money, so he is a person who needs to pay zakah. His wife has nothing to her name, so she has nothing to her name, so does he give on behalf of both of them? So the answer is that as the wife does not own that much amount, then this udhiyah is not necessary upon her. But if the husband still gives it on behalf of her, then both the husband and both, so he will receive the reward for himself and his wife as well. Question. Do matured, baligh children need to offer this sacrifice as well? The answer. Only if they possess the required amount of excess wealth beyond necessities, meaning they also are eligible to pay zakah. Then they too have to offer the sacrifice from their money, even though your child is only 14 years old, and is only 16 young old, and he's not even in university, he hasn't got a job yet, and he's going to have to spend £80 from his savings, and it has to be done. Has to be done. Question. Is it okay to have my udhiyah done in another country? Answer. This is permissible and sometimes recommended due to the difficult circumstances the ummah worldwide goes through. Yes, if there's a war, there's an earthquake, there's something happening, okay. However, a great negligence has been seen in the people of UK that they completely disregard doing their udhiyah locally. By not doing so, even one sacrifice in the family. So let's say there's 5 sacrifices to be made, 5 shares. So you don't even do 1 share in this country. So when you don't do this, the spirit of udhiyah is not revived in the people of the house, not even in the children. They don't even know what's udhiyah about. They don't even get to eat the meat. So you don't get to discuss this. So this is a very big deprivation. Yeah, for what? For 20, 30 pounds more. It's a very big deprivation. You should at least do 1 udhiyah here. If there's poor countries out there, there's war-torn countries out there, there's countries that have faced natural disasters, by all means send something there as well. Send something there. But still your Qurbani, your Udhiyah will not be able to get to every one of those countries. So you'll have to accept defeat at some stage and say, you know what? I am sending my Udhiyah to Pakistan because my village people or my family is in need. So that's why I'm not doing it here. But that's no excuse, because there's more people in need in Palestine as well. And there's in Syria as well. And in other parts of the world as well, in Turkey as well. You should be sending it everywhere. If you really care about the need of the people abroad, then you should be doing many more everywhere, if it's really the need. But sometimes there's a big thief within the heart. We say Urdu chor is within the heart. And this thief within the heart, this deceiver within the heart is telling us, no, I'm sending it abroad because I really want to help the needy. Whereas he really wants to get a good deal. He doesn't want to spend £20 more here. He doesn't want to spend £30 more here. But he himself is convincing himself, no, there's more people needed, and that's why I'm doing my udhiyah over there. And if we really were doing it, we would have thought to ourselves, where's the most needy people in the world? But who does this research? Nobody. As soon as the first forward comes on WhatsApp, oh, this charity is collecting udhiyah. Oh yeah, I got to give out udhiyah. Yeah, I'll just click over here and give it to them. Nobody does research. If you really were concerned about the needy and who's in need, and that's why sending it abroad, you would have done good research to find out who actually is in need and where. But no, it's just the quick escape, the quick card to play, escape route, and do my obligation, done and dusted. So we should avoid this. Can I give sadaqah in place of udhiyah? Can I just give the money and not sacrifice an animal? So this is a very big problem within the group of people in the ummah. They think this is permissible. But however, there's a list of incidents from the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een who've offered their sacrifices themselves and not given sadaqah in return for it. But I haven't listed those here. Just simply, no, you're not allowed to give sadaqah in place of that. The udhiyah is wajib. And like wajib and farad, like we've already explained, it's a necessary action of deen. Just as fasting of Ramadan, which is farad, it cannot be substituted for salah. So a person can't say, you know what, fasting is hard in Ramadan, but I'll just perform 4 extra rakat of fard salah, dhuhr salah, and that will be my fast. Or I'll just do extra fard salah throughout the whole day, and I'll substitute like this. I'll put this in place of that. So just where you can't swap these fard around for another fard and things like that, you can't do it for udhiyah as well, because udhiyah is wajib upon the person who's eligible to pay zakah. So you can't do that swapping around. If a person has outstanding udhiyah from previous years that they have not fulfilled, then they should consult a mufti as to how they can recompense for this. So if they were eligible for zakah, if they were eligible to pay zakah and they didn't give the udhiyah, then they need to ask a mufti that, how can I recompense for this? Is there a preferred way of slaughtering the different udhiyah animals? Remember, we mentioned cattle and also camel and goat and sheep. So for a camel, you thrust the knife into the base of a camel's neck whilst it is standing with one of its front legs tied up. Like that. Like that. So normally they have the knives that look like daggers and they just go. So those that experience, they know how to do it. Before the camel just takes your head in its mouth. As for the goats, the sheep, they should be, and the cows, the bulls, they should be placed on their left-hand side with its legs bound, except the right hind back leg. So back leg, I've just put that just as an elaboration of I don't say hind or hind, hind, isn't it? So as humans, we have the 2 arms. So when the animals, the front 2, they're regarded as the arms, and the hind is the back 2, which is the legs. So you tie the right back one. I think it might be a bit different in a horse. I'm not sure how it works, but horse is not eligible for this Qurbani anyway. The slaughterer should hold the knife in his right hand and hold the animal's head with his left. So imagine the head is that way. And it should be facing the Qibla. Remember we were saying that it's preferable to slaughter while it's facing the Qibla. The knife should be sharp as well. And then Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and it should cut through. Is it permissible to slaughter an animal who has a tag pierced into its ear? Or it's been stamped with the iron, a number's been stamped onto it. Or it's been painted, so can you do this? So with regards to the ear, as long as the cut is not a third or more, then yes, this animal is still eligible to be slaughtered. It won't be considered defective. And if it's been stamped with something like iron on its number, etc., painted, then this is also still permissible to be slaughtered. Do I have to distribute the animal slaughtered in 3 parts? So we mentioned this, that no, but it's recommended, and keeping a third for yourself, third for family and friends, and third to be given in charity. Is it true that slaughtering an animal and distributing the meat to the poor alleviates difficulty? And let me give you a bit of insight to that. What happens? In our culture, the Asian culture, what happens is, oh, he's sick, go slaughter an animal in Pakistan. And inshallah, Allah will give him shifa. oh, you're suffering from this illness, go slaughter an animal in Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, Allah will give this person shifa. So any excuse, the first thing that comes to mind, go slaughter an animal. Go slaughter an animal. Go slaughter an animal. Yes, I am. Go slaughter an animal, slaughter an animal, slaughter an animal. So is this something true or not? Is this part of our religion? Are we given this guidance for this? So, the answer. Purely sacrificing an animal in itself is worship only in certain circumstances of Sharia. For example, the Udhiyah. This Qurbani, what you're doing now, this, Allah only wants the sacrifice. Allah's not bothered about the meat. That's why you can give it to a poor person, you can give it to a rich person, you can give it to a Muslim, even another Muslim as well. You can give it to anyone. You can, just for argument's sake, you can even throw it away. Yeah, just for argument's sake, I'm saying that. Just saying that what kind of usage would invalidate your sacrifice. So even throwing it away or not using it at all, it rots. This doesn't invalidate your sacrifice. It doesn't affect your sacrifice at all, because all that Allah wants from the Qurbani, the Udhiyah, is the sacrifice. That's it. What happens after that point to that animal and that carcass, that's your choice what you do with it, how you use it, your choice. So that's one place where just sacrificing an animal is desired by Allah, purely sacrificing. Aqiqah, same thing. Child is born, a boy is born, 2 small animals. A girl is born, 1 small animal. Hadi, this is something which a person who is traveling for Hajj, they take the animal of sacrifice with them. In the early days they would do that. Maybe in Saudi Arabia, if that's still there, I don't know. But you take your animal with you to Hajj and then you sacrifice. Or the dam at the time of Hajj and Umrah, which is a penalty. That's specific rules with it as well. Apart from this, the Sharia has not specifically recommended the sacrifice of an animal for any other reason as worship. Yes? No. So apart from the above, there's no other significance or effect in sacrificing an animal. And if the poor that you're sacrificing the animal for, and you want to sacrificing it for the poor, so when you say there's a difficulty and I'm sacrificing an animal, who's this animal going to go to? The poor. That's why you always choose the poor countries to sacrifice it to. If the poor were more in need of cash than meat, because they would say, we will live on lentils and dal, we will live on chapati or just tomato or just chutney, that's what we'll eat. We actually need the money for my son's tuition fees, for his school, for his education. We need it for clothes. We don't have clothes. We need it for water. We don't have water. We don't need the meat. So if the need of the poor is more than the meat that you're giving, then at that time, the sacrificing of the animal by which you're doing it for the poor people, they'll make dua for you. Their dua would have come even more for you if you gave them what they need more, which wasn't the meat, it was something else. So this understanding that, oh, I'm in this difficulty, let me sacrifice an animal. So this is no understanding. There's no end to it. There's no means, there's no reason for it. The reason is fulfilling the needs of the needy, and they will make dua for you, and that dua inshallah will work for you. And when you assist the needy, then Allah comes in your assistance as well. This is the important thing to remember. So when slaughtering the animal for the poor, the intention should be giving charity and helping the poor, as these two are the things which alleviate problems, not the slaughter of the animal per se. Which animals can be sacrificed, and how many shares can be intended in them? So, regardless of whether the animal is male or female, sheep and a goat equals only 1 share. How many shares? 1 share. The cattle, which is the cow, the buffalo, the ox, and the camel, this equals 7 shares. How many? 7. So you can intend 7 people in this. However, it is not necessary to have 7 different people or 7 separate intentions for an animal that you can separate into 7 parts. You can say that I am buying this whole animal myself and I'm sacrificing this animal. So you don't have to, 7 people don't have to chip in and purchase the animal in 7 equal parts. That's not necessary. Right, question. How many people can own a small animal or a single share of a big animal? The answer is one person. So a goat and a sheep can only fulfill the sacrifice of one person. So it can't be Muhammad and Bilal who both have to do Udhiyah this Eid al-Adha. They say, we're both going to purchase a sheep together and we're going to slaughter that. No, that can only be for one person, it can't be for two. It can't be that there's 8 people purchasing a cow. So 8 people need to fulfill the Udhiyah, the Qurbani, and they're all purchasing a cow. Because how many shares are in a cow? 7, so only 7 can purchase. If they wanted to take up to 7, only 7 can purchase. Question: can I intend my wajib udhiyah and nafal in the shares? Can I intend my wajib udhiyah and nafal udhiyah in the shares of a large animal? So can I mix my intentions? Can I say that I'm one person, but I want to buy a whole cow myself? So share number 1 is going to be my udhiyah, which I need to give for this Eid al-Adha. Now I've got 6 shares left. So remember, the first share is your wajib. Now the second to the 7th share is going to be any intention you make now. That I'm going to do it for Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm going to do it for the ummah, I'm going to do it for those that are in difficulty, and you carry on with your intention. So we're saying, can you mix wajib and nafal intentions into one animal? Now because the animal is separate parts, meaning you can dedicate to 7 parts, that means you can do this in larger animals where you can make intentions of shares which are more than 2, which means you're either having 1 share in sheep or goat or 7 shares in the cattle or the camel. So you can mix wajib intentions and nafal intentions. Can I send reward to multiple people for my wajib udhiyah? No, this can only be done in nafal udhiyah, because again, wajib and fard is for yourself. You can't perform your fard, dhahr salah, and say, oh Allah, this dhahr salah I performed, give the reward to it to my mother who's passed away, to my father. This is a fard. This can only be done for yourself. But the sunnahs you do before dhahr, and the sunnah nafal you do after dhahr, that you can intend for the whoever you want. Yeah, and for Isal al-Thawab you can intend the living and you can intend the dead as well. We have already given a very detailed session on this in the Durus of the Quran. And the final question: how many people can I send the reward of a nafal udhiyah? To how many people can I send the reward of a nafal udhiyah? So for example, I bought 2 goats. One is for my wajib udhiyah, yeah, my necessary udhiyah. I've got to do that. And the second one, I said, I'm going to do this an optional sacrifice, optional udhiyah. So how many people can I intend in the optional one? Can I say that, okay, I'm doing this on behalf of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And then I say to myself, oh, I've already intended Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, so I can't intend my grandparents who passed away now. I can't do this. No. In nafal udhiyah, you can make as many intentions as you want. As many. As wide, as broad, and as specific. So you can say specific names, up to, for example, whatever, let's say we say 10 names. And then we say, after these 10 names, Allah, whoever else is in the ummah, send the reward to them as well. So then why didn't you just do that at the beginning and say everybody? Why? Because maybe these 10 people are very special to you, so just emotionally, sentimentally, you said 10 names and then you said everyone. The reward is going to be equal to everyone. But just sentimentally you did that. This is fine, you can do that. The reward still will be equal. Remember one thing, respected brothers and listeners, is that when you send reward for a nafal action, because it's your effort, your time, and your money, maybe, if it's a monetarily ibadah as well, because it's your time, your effort, your money that's going behind it, Allah is going to give you, inshallah, the full reward of it. This is in the hadith. The full reward of it. And then whoever you intend it for, they also get that reward. So if I had 1 pen, for example, and I was saying, I'm going to give this sadaqah to a poor child, then you can imagine that this pen, it multiplies to 2. So it creates a twin from itself. And then in the court of Allah, 2 pen worth of rewards go to Allah. So 1 pen worth of reward I get, and 1 pen worth of reward they get if I intend. Maybe I'll give the right example. If I intend the reward for someone else, not sorry, give it to a child, but if I intend the reward for someone else, then it's like as if there's two sets of this action created now, and Allah will reward it as as a set, meaning one for this person who's actually done it and one for whom they intended it. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam made a sacrifice on behalf of his ummah in his lifetime. Subhanallah, this has been mentioned in the hadith book of Imam al-Tabrani rahimahullah, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his life, he made a sacrifice on behalf of the ummah. And in one hadith, I believe it's the narrator is Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed him that you should make a sacrifice on behalf of me. And he said, from that year that he instructed me, every year I would give an additional sacrifice just on behalf of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So my dear respected brothers and elders, we should give sacrifices and we shouldn't hold back. This money we are giving, this is worship. Zakat is worship, this is worship as well. Giving it to a masjid is worship as well. Spending your money for the sake of Allah, this is worship. But this is a very special time of the year that you can do this particular type of spending. Yeah, so don't hold back. If your grandparents have passed away, parents have passed away, your loved ones, near ones, friends, dear ones have passed away, you should give it on behalf of them as well. And that will be shown to them as reward on the day of judgment. And when they see that reward, they'll be finding you on the day of judgment. Allah, who's given me this much? I didn't sacrifice this many animals. You know, it comes in the hadith that this person will see so much reward on his account and he will not even know where this reward has come from. Where is it? It's not my book of deeds. I didn't do all these things, but they all will be recorded for him. So imagine how happy will these people become, and if Allah has given them the power of intercession because of their achievements in this world, Hafiz of the Quran and Alim of the Quran, etc. Then seeing that the amount of reward you sent for them, then by all reason in their heart your name would come, that if I have to give in, if I can intercede on behalf of 70 people, 100 people, then this person who sent me this much reward, yes, Allah, I'm interceding on his behalf as well, that take him out from the fire of Jahannam and send him into Jannah, Allah, accept my intercession. So this is the benefit. This is why you should always intend specifically the pious of the ummah. Allah, on behalf of all those whom you consider pious in your attention, Allah, I am dedicating from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most pious to have ever existed on earth, to the last one that will come on earth. Allah, on behalf of every single one, Allah, this udhiyah, this sacrifice. So we should open, as we said in the hadith, with an open and happy heart we should sacrifice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first will give me, then the rest of you the ability to act upon what has been said. And alhamdulillah, according to the time I estimated, we are finished at about 9:15. Alhamdulillah. Are there any questions? MashaAllah, there's questions. I thought we did enough Q&As. Okay, inshallah. Okay, the hand up was first from there. I'll start from there, inshallah. Ameen.
In the time book, it said during Qurbani is not for Israel, but usually we give money to the charity or wherever in a foreign country. So is this specific to the place in which the Qurbani is being performed, or is that condition still upon us as well? So for example, if it's abroad, they'll do Qurbani after the Eid Salah in that particular location. We may not have done like Eid Salah here. So
We may not have
done the Eid Salah
Yeah.
here ourselves. So is it still like not done?
Yeah, that's a masala which I didn't have an opportunity to look up, so I do need to look up that one. So the one that I have looked up is that if the udhiyah is done after your Eid Salah from here, yeah, then this is fine. I still need to look up or ask about if it's done before, and what would that be? Will ours be accepted or not?
Necessarily depending on just that location.
I don't know. This is the thing. Yeah, I don't know. So I need to find out about that. So, but in terms of the cutting nails and the hair that we mentioned, that if your udhiyah is being done later than your Eid day, then it's preferable you continue to that point, and even in your Eid day in this country, you will carry on having your nails and hair uncut until your udhiyah is done on the first day after Eid or second day after Eid, like that. But I will come back to it, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Yes.
In the, where it said that if the slaughtered animal gives back, you slaughter the child as well. So does that then overrule the other conditions, which is it has to be 2 years old and all that kind? say a capsule must be at least 2 years old, and then camels must be at least 5 years old. But so you've got to slow down when it gives birth, so I'm assuming...
That's right, yes, that's an exception. No, you wouldn't know. So the question was that if there is a pregnant animal that has been selected to be slaughtered, and this pregnant animal gives birth at the time of slaughter, so just before slaughter, then you would, by ruling, you would slaughter that young as well at the same time. So the normal conditions is that the goat and the sheep have to be at least 1 year old. But we also mentioned here that if you don't have the 1 year old, even if a minimum 6 months old one is there that looks like a 1 year old, then that's fine as well. But the young will be an exception to this rule in that circumstance. It's not very common for it to happen. And normally people do not pick pregnant animals anyway. But this is just the technical side. So these are rulings. This is like, if this happens, then what? And if this happens, then what? Yes. Wa alaikum salam.
So, you know, there's those are conditions where the animal we sacrificed, where it was facing the defects. But if I'm doing it in Pakistan, for example, I don't know if these conditions been fulfilled. If they're not, is it still accepted from me though?
So the question is that if a person doesn't have the knowledge of the rulings of what makes an animal eligible and ineligible to slaughter due to defects, and they slaughter, then will their sacrifice be accepted? So not having the knowledge is not an excuse. Yeah, we must remember this everything. So if we're performing salah and we don't know if I've done my wudu properly, is this how you do wudu? We just copied people and we just did it in our own understanding. That's not an excuse. If you haven't done your wudu properly, your salah is not accepted. It's as simple as that. So not having knowledge and then not seeking knowledge, these are not excuses. You can't use them as an excuse. So if the person did the slaughter of the animal himself, herself, or had it done by someone and they don't know if it's been done correctly, then if they don't know, isn't it? So it doesn't mean you have to go repeat everything you don't know. If you're certain that it was done incorrectly, then you should ask the muftis, what do I do now? Because sacrifice of animal is limited to 3 days, 10th, 11th and 12th of that year for that sacrifice. But you should ask the muftis, how do I recompensate for that? Any other questions? No, mashallah? Okay, alhamdulillah. I thought the Q&As, they covered quite a lot. Alhamdulillah. Just that one was still in my mind. Even before the program, that one was still in my mind. But I didn't have time to get to that point. Okay, alhamdulillah. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanallah al-azim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Do the brothers think that we should hold more sessions like this throughout the year on the Tuesdays, on occasions? See, next week there's an occasion that's just coming after next Tuesday, which is the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. So normally these topics I mention in Jumu'ah, but Jumu'ah is 15-20 minutes, and look how much time we've spent right now. You can't do this in 15-20 minutes, and if you do it, you can merely just touch upon the topic and just try and encourage people to do it. You can't even touch upon rules and regulations. You'll confuse people more than even help them. When you're in a setting like this where you've got handouts, you've got someone here to explain to you, you can ask something as well. In this setting, you can understand rules, you can share rules and regulations, and but you can't say it from the minbar. You don't say rules and regulations from there. You just confuse people. So that's why with the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah happening after the Tuesday next week, we can possibly do one program like this on the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah next Tuesday. Yeah, and this isn't every Tuesday. This is when an occasion comes like this, then we can use Tuesdays as an excuse. Where the Dars al-Quran happens, we can use this. Do you think we should? Yeah, benefited? Okay, alhamdulillah. Now the handouts you have with you, you should go home and you should read them to the family. Yeah, this is the season for it. You should go through this handout with the family. You should invite friends, family over, of course with the rules of segregation, and your youngsters, your youth, nephews, nieces, and then sit down and talk to them on their level and in their language, on some lighter terms, maybe omit a few detailed things and just give them a feeling of this, that what is this? Yeah, so it doesn't mean that this is just the Imam's responsibility of the whole locality. Once he's done it, that's it. It never should be mentioned again. No, but you should take it upon yourself now to teach someone else, to give them the education. May Allah give us all the tawfiq. Amin ya Rabbal Alameen. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanallah al-azim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Amin. Wa alaykum as-salam. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi.